Hi, I got a few questions about one of the questions on your WebAssign for today. This is WebAssign HQ45D number 2. So I thought it'd be nice to make a little tutorial to help you kind of work your way through this problem. And I think you'll see that part of it is just a little bit of confusion because of the way that the problem's presented in this typing, and we're going to make it easier for ourselves. So the first thing we're going to do is pick u. I'll give myself a little space for that over here. So we'll say let u equal something, and this is where we should think and be wise about our choice. Notice your problem might not look exactly like this. My numbers in red here are 8s, yours might be 9s or 6s or 3s, and that's okay because you can still solve this problem in the same way we're about to try. So this is where I'm a little bit stumped. I'm wondering, should u be tangent of 8x because it's inside of a radical? Should u be 8x because that's the absolute innermost part of the function? Should u be secant of 8x because that's also kind of inside. It's inside of being squared. Well, you know what? It's one of those three choices, and we might have to try through a couple before we get to the right one. But if we want to be wise about it, the best thing to do is let u equal the tangent of 8x, and I'll give you a couple reasons why. Making u 8x doesn't really help us too much. It doesn't make the problem much simpler. Tangent of u would still be here, and secant of u would still be there. I'm thinking I want to go for one of the two trig functions, and here's why tangent's a good choice. Its derivative, in a way, a version of its derivative appears. I would prefer to see this. Can you rewrite the original? It might be easier if we rewrite the original actually this way. Write it as integral of the square root of tangent of 8x times, I'm going to write secant squared of 8x. I'm going to use that trig notation where you put the square on the inside, taken with respect to x. I'll just slide myself over here. Because now I can see that something and its derivative appears. Tangent's derivative is the secant squared, so we have a hope of getting this to cancel later. So once we pick the right u, now you got to think back to your days of deriving. Its tangent's the main event. Its derivative is secant squared. Secant squared of what? Of 8x. And then I would be asking you guys, did I forget anything? We've got an inside derivative of 8. By chain rule, we tag that onto the derivative. So it's du over dx. I'll just move the 8 out front, equals 8 secant squared 8x. And then we want to cross multiply, really. Du equals 8 secant squared 8x dx. And then we solve for dx. Du equals 8 secant squared 8x dx. And again, if your problem has 3s or 9s instead of the 8, just put 3s or 9s there instead of the 8. This is going to help a lot, and that's going to help with a plug-in. So we'll go back to the way we rewrote the original, and now I think our setup's going to be nice. This is the integral of just u, which is awesome. That won't be hard to integrate. And then secant squared, I hope you see that canceling in a second. Secant squared 8x. But then you've got in for dx, you're plugging this fraction, du, over something with secant squared 8x in it, secant squared 8x. So part of this that we wanted to go away is going to go away. We'll have these canceling. The 8 doesn't cancel, the 8 stays, but the part that was problematic is going to go away. And just little by little, we're making this problem a little bit easier. I love the constant out front. I like seeing 1/8 here instead of that like 8 on the bottom of the fraction randomly. And I also like seeing this as u to the 1/2 instead of the square root of u, because it'll just be easier to use kind of an anti-differentiation power rule. So let's go blue, and we'll leave the constant. We've got to think of the integral of u to the 1/2, right? We're getting into the part you should be more familiar with. We're up to 3/2. And we got to divide by 3/2, so a 2/3 out front. And I'll put the plus c so I don't forget it in the next step. And now I think we should simplify and plug back in for u. So 1/8 times 2/3, I know 2 goes into 8 4 times. You get 1/12. And instead of u, I got to go back to what I need to write, tangent of 8x. So we'll put parentheses, tangent of 8x to the 3/2. And plus the c at the end, and that should do the trick. Okay, let me know. These questions that you guys have been sending me are awesome, so keep them coming. WebAssign sometimes puts in extra parentheses around the 8x. Those you can take them or leave them. They shouldn't matter too much. All right, I miss you. See you later.